Last night I saw you again, not in a photograph, not in an old message, not in one of those memories that sneak into my mind when a certain song starts playing. I saw you in my dream. It felt so real that when I opened my eyes this morning, I reached for my phone, expecting to find a message from you waiting there. There wasn't one, just a quiet hum of my room and the painful realization that some people can visit your dreams more often than your reality. You looked exactly the way I remembered you, but somehow happier. There was a softness in your smile that I hadn't seen before. You didn't look angry. You didn't look hurt. You just looked peaceful. In the dream, we were sitting on a wooden bench beside a lake. The sun was beginning to set, painting the water with shades of orange and gold. Everything around us felt strangely familiar, even though I knew I'd never been there before. For a long time, neither of us spoke, and somehow the silence wasn't awkward. It was comforting. Then you looked at me and asked the one question I'd been avoiding for years. Have you forgiven yourself? Yet I couldn't answer because the truth was still the same. No, I hadn't. You smiled gently, almost as if you already knew. You keep apologizing for becoming someone who was only trying to survive. Those words hit me harder than anything I'd ever heard. I wanted to tell you how much I missed you, how many nights I replayed our last conversation, how often I wondered if one different decision could have changed everything. But before I could speak, you shook your head. You still think our story ended because you weren't enough. Tears filled my eyes. Didn't. You reached out and held my hand. No. Then why did you leave? You looked toward the lake before answering. Because sometimes two good people meet at the wrong time. I felt my heart break all over again. For years I'd blamed myself for everything, every misunderstanding, every argument, every goodbye. I carried guilt like it was part of my identity. But in that dream, something shifted. You weren't accusing me. You weren't asking me to come back. You weren't even asking me to remember you. You were asking me to let myself live again. You've been standing still ever since I left. You whispered. I didn't know how to move. You do? Now I looked at you confused. how you smiled. Um, Stop waiting for a version of life that no longer exists. The wind carried your words across the water. Then you stood up. I panicked. Please don't go. You left softly. I'm not leaving, but you're walking away. No, you said. I'm walking back into the place where memories belong. I couldn't stop crying. I still love you. I know. I don't know how to stop. You don't have to stop loving me. I stared at you. You just have to stop letting yesterday steal tomorrow. Everything around us became brighter. The sky, the lake, even the air. You took one final step backward. When you wake up, you said, don't remember me because I made you cry. Remember me because I taught you how deeply your heart can love. Then you disappeared. I woke up with tears running down my face. For a few seconds, I forgot it had been a dream. I looked around the room hoping just for a moment that you'd still be there. You weren't. But something else was. Peace. Not complete peace. Not enough to erase years of missing you. Just enough to help me breathe without feeling guilty. For the first time since losing you, I opened the curtains instead of closing them. I made breakfast instead of skipping it. I called my parents just to hear their voices. I smiled at strangers. I answered the messages I'd ignored for weeks. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see someone abandoned. I saw someone is still becoming. Maybe dreams aren't just random stories our minds invent. Maybe sometimes they're letters our hearts write when our souls are finally ready to read them. I don't know if I'll ever dream about you again. Part of me hopes I do. Another part hopes I don't need to, because if that really was your goodbye, it wasn't the painful goodbye we shared years ago. It was the goodbye that finally gave me permission to keep living, and somehow that changed everything. The next night I didn't want to fall asleep, not because I was afraid of another dream, because I was afraid there wouldn't be one. It's strange how quickly the heart becomes attached to impossible things. One dream had given me more peace than months of pretending I was okay, and I was terrified of waking up to ordinary silence again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word you'd said. Stop letting yesterday steal tomorrow. The sentence echoed inside my mind long after the room had gone dark. Eventually, sleep found me. This time the dream was different. There was no lake, no sunset, no bench. I was standing inside an old bookstore, the kind with wooden shelves stretching from floor to ceiling. Dust floated through warm beams of sunlight, and the entire place smelled like forgotten stories. I walked slowly between the shelves, searching for something I couldn't name. Then I heard your voice. You finally came. I turned around. You were standing only a few steps away, holding a book against your chest. You came back. I whispered. You smiled. I never really left. You've just been looking for me in places where I don't live anymore. I frowned. What does that mean? You handed me the book. The cover was blank. No title, no author's name. When I opened it, every page contained memories from my own life. The first day we met, our first laugh together, the night we watched the rain from the car because neither of us wanted to go home, the little arguments that seemed so important back then, but now felt impossibly small. As I turned each page, I expected to find a chapter where everything fell apart. Instead, the pages were empty. I looked up at you. Why isn't the ending here? Because you've been trying to rewrite it for years. I thought if I understood what went wrong, you'd finally stop hurting. I nodded. You gently closed the book. Some stories don't end because someone failed. They end because they taught us everything they were meant to teach. A tear rolled down my face. I still miss you. I still wish you'd stayed. I know. I still love you. You smiled sadly. I know that too. The silence between us felt heavy, not painful, just honest. Finally, you asked, "Can I ask you one last favor?" Anything. When you meet someone who loves you the way you always deserve to be loved, my heart stopped. Don't punish them for my absence. I couldn't breathe. You've been building walls around a heart that only wanted to protect itself. I lowered my head. I didn't realize. I know. Will I ever stop missing you? You walked closer until we were standing face to face. No. Then how do I move on? You don't move on from people who changed your life. You move forward with what they taught you. You reached out and placed your hand over my heart. This place doesn't belong to grief anymore. It belongs to hope. The bookstore began to disappear. The shelves faded. The sunlight dimmed. You started becoming transparent like morning mist. I panicked. Please, don't disappear again. You laughed softly. I'm not disappearing. Then where are you going? To where memories become blessings instead of burdens. Your voice grew quieter. And when you dream again, will I see you? You smiled. No. Why? Because next time I hope you're dreaming about your future instead of your past. I woke up before I could answer. The room was silent, but for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like the beginning of something. I walked to the window and watched the sunrise paint the sky in soft shades of gold. For months, I'd believed healing meant forgetting. Now I understood something different. Healing wasn't forgetting. Healing was remembering without breaking. Maybe that's why you came back into my dreams, not to remind me of what I'd lost, but to remind me of everything I still had left to become. And as the first rays of sunlight reached my face, I whispered into the quiet morning, "Thank you for loving me enough to let me go." The wind carried my words away, somewhere deep inside, where grief had lived for so long. Hope finally found a place to stay. Days passed after that second dream. Life slowly began to feel different. Not because the pain had disappeared, because it no longer controlled every decision I made. I started going for evening walks again. I listened to music without skipping the songs that reminded me of you. I visited places we'd once dreamed of seeing together, not to reopen old wounds, but to prove to myself that beautiful places didn't belong only to painful memories. Still, every night before sleeping, a quiet part of me wondered if I'd see you again. Most nights, I didn't. There were only ordinary dreams, strange, forgettable, meaningless. Then, one rainy night, you came back, but this time you weren't alone. Standing beside you was a little girl, no older than 6.